Modern opera productions are ugly, misleading, and out of touch. Can we please talk about it? The first step is admitting we have a problem. Because lest you think I'm cherry picking here, it only took me an hour to find all these clips, these bare-ass, poorly lit, budget crisis, minimalist, reimagined esoteric atrocities that have been plaguing opera houses around the world for the last 20 years. Opera's in its ugly era. Okay, so in this video, we're gonna talk about what that means, how opera houses are not being honest about it, why I think it's happening, and God, I hope, a light at the end of the tunnel for everyone who just misses beautiful opera productions. I brought visual aids. All right, now before we dissect some of those ugly ass opera clips, let's talk about some of the terminology that you're gonna have to know. The big one today, hello. The big one today is staging. What is she? We have four main components: set design, props, lighting and sound design, and blocking. Costumes are also technically a part of this, but they're like kind of their own separate thing. Like obviously they're important, but they're not technically part of staging. So I'm just gonna they're just gonna kind of go, I don't know, like just, okay. Satisfying. Okay, so in set design, you've got scenery, you got furniture, you got backdrops, and you got the set. These are like the actual physical structure people stand on. You have to consider how big these things are, where they're gonna be on the stage, if they move, how they move, are they analog, are they digital? Set design, that's one team. Then over here we have props. I think we're all familiar. We know what prop is short for, right? Propensculity. They're objects you move around the stage to tell the story. These can be lots of things. You can see some objects here. Yep, okay, we know what this is. That's another team. Lighting and sound design. This covers things like the colors of a scene, the way actors on stage are actually physically, literally lit up so you can see them. Any sound effects you might hear, like explosions or animals or storms or that kind of stuff. And then blocking is a fancy theater word for choreography. How do the actors literally move around the stage? Fun fact, opera singers do not get to decide what they do on stage. We actually spend weeks in rehearsal being explicitly told when and where and how to move. From stage directions like the exact footwork of a fight scene, to when we're supposed to go up and down the stairs, to on the third beat of measure 32, sit on that chair. So this all together is staging. And the point of good staging is to help tell the story. It'll tell you what time period you're in, it'll tell you where you are in the world, it'll tell you what vibe we're feeling, what emotions we're supposed to be having. It immerses you in the story. And the person who's responsible for making all of this happen, the one who seems to be having just a constant existential IKEA meltdown these days, is le directeur, the genius, the visionary. It's the director's job to study the opera, visualize the opera, and then take that visualization out of their head and then manifest it on the stage for us to see. They're a big deal. They're the ones who are responsible for telling every single team here how to do their jobs. They tell them what the set should look like. They tell them what props to use. They tell us what lighting and sound we're gonna have. They do all the blocking, they lead all the blocking rehearsals, and they collaborate on the costumes. So everything you're seeing on the stage came from the director. We know who to blame. I'm kidding. There are a lot of really good directors out there. There are just also a lot that are, you know what? That's what this video is about. All right, remember these terms, because now we're gonna go and we're gonna talk about how opera has become ugly. Quick disclaimer here about the skilled workers who create all these things that we're about to talk about. These are extremely trained professionals, like highly, highly skilled workers who have spent years honing their craft and ability to do these sets and props and design all of these things. So if I, as some random person on the internet, subjectively think that what they make is ugly, that has nothing to do with the labor that actually goes into producing these things, right? We love and support skilled workers. Okay. Also, they probably don't have a hell of a lot of choice. Directors have a lot more control than you think they do. Here we have a production of La Traviata. The first thing I notice, no backdrop. Seems like very few opera productions bother with backdrops anymore, and for a staging like this, where there's also no furniture or scenery, a backdrop would have been, I don't know, like the least they could do. There also only seems to be one set piece, this giant wooden block that everyone's standing on. This feels cheap. I don't know why any director would choose this. It makes literally everyone look bad, from the set designers to the singers. None of this helps me understand where we are in the world, where we are in time, let alone actually immersing me in the story. There's nothing to be immersed in. Also, what in the world is going on with this blocking? We're going to come back to this. Compare that to this Traviata from the Met in 2019. You can't commit to set design harder than this. I'm seeing an intricate, colorful set piece. I'm seeing these gauzy red backdrops behind it. I'm seeing furniture that's being used naturally as part of the performance. I know where we are, and I feel like I'm looking at a story. Honestly, I feel like I'm looking at art. Props. Well, it's grim, to say the least. It's almost like directors look at the things that are actually required for a scene to, make sense, and then get rid of everything else. Take this scene from Carmen, where Carmen has been imprisoned by Don Jose. Yes, we have a rope. But literally, where is anything else? Where are the handcuffs? Where are the prison bars for her to rattle? A water jug, keys for him to hold? Like, just anything at all that should be in a jail. Nothing. Just a bare-ass set with nothing but what's strictly needed. But look at this, Carmen. Look at the number of props in here. Things they might not even use. There are so many things to look at. It almost feels like it blends more with set design than props. Because I don't know, who knows if Don Jose is gonna rip those papers off the wall or sit down and start writing a letter. The director has allowed the singers to tell the story with props if they want to. Look, Carmen gets hurt in the scene before this, and so to distract herself from her singing to pass the time, Don Jose gives her a cloth to clean herself up, which she does in this very seductive, completely in character way. Not possible without these props. Like that poor Carmen who had to try to be seductive while standing in a rope in the dark. And speaking of the dark, lighting. Where is she? 'Cause she ain't here. This is a particularly terrible part of this modern opera staging trend. What is going on with lighting in modern opera productions? First of all, everything is blue and black. Blue and black, blue and black. Why are we so blue and black and dark? This one's just dark and shadowy. I mean, okay, yes, there is a time for mood lighting in certain scenes, but this is just the whole damn opera. I mean, look at this one. You can barely see the faces of the two leads singing their super famous duet. Look, I'm sure there's a good reason for this trend of not showing anything on stage and only illuminating people with LED lights directly from overhead, but I really couldn't tell you what it is. Oh my God, let's calm down. Okay, let's look at this done well. It's still dark and shadowy. It's still blue and black, but my eye is drawn to the queen by a spotlight that isn't accidentally also throwing her or anything else around her in shadow. The background is lit. The bed is lit. Even Pamina on the ground here is clearly visible, but not the center of attention. The lighting in this scene is telling me a story. And that story isn't, the lighting team is on strike tonight. And speaking of Pamina on the ground there, let's talk about blocking. Little story. There was this one production I was in during my master's program where the entirety of the blocking was slithering. Slithering standing up, slithering laying down, slithering with fingers and arms and bodies. And did I know what the purpose of all this slithering was? No. Probably something about love slithering into the crannies of your heart, or I don't know, some kind of interpretation like that. But I'll tell you what it was not. It was not fun for me or my colleagues, or I have to imagine the audience. And that's all I can think about when I look at modern blocking like this. What are we doing? What story are we trying to force this poor tenor to tell by pretending to be scared of a picture of a snake on the stage and moving his body like this? And yeah, we're gonna come back to this one. This kind of explicit sexuality on stage is unfortunately happening everywhere, and it almost never works. 9 times out of 10, it's gonna be less erotic and more cringe. You can practically hear the audience squirming in their seats. I cannot be the only one who gets the absolute ick watching someone slow grind to Verdi. It is not profound. It's just a director trying to be edgy, and all I read here is singers feeling really awkward because these poor singers signed their contracts years ago and then only found out a few weeks before opening night that this is how the performance was going to be reinterpreted. And at that point, what's your choice? You either have to go along with it or you pull out, so to speak, tank the production, and then basically get blacklisted by the house. So what is the point of blocking? Blocking is here to move people around the stage. Grab her waist here, pick up a glass there, flump on the bed here. It makes sense for the scene and it helps to tell the story. These are natural movements people make every day, so when that gets disrupted, there should be good storytelling reasons for it. And I don't know, at least for me, saying it's art is just not good enough. So with ugly productions like these happening so frequently in opera houses around the world, it's getting harder to get audiences through the door. So how do you think opera houses have responded? If you guessed they're being super upfront and very plain about what we're watching, I think you clicked on the wrong video, friend. No, they're lying. They're lying about it. Now look, I'm not inherently against minimalist productions. Like, I understand these operas have been around for a long time, and if you want to reimagine stuff, that can be kind of fun to do. I get it. It's hard to sell me on that kind of stuff, but I can understand how that happens. My only request is, be honest about it, please. Like, it's the least you can do. For example, opera houses should absolutely not be advertising a minimalist 20th century production of Romeo and Juliet with an advertisement like this. This tells me nothing. As someone who's just like sitting on the train, I don't know, like having my morning commute, and I see a poster for an opera that says Romeo and Juliet, I'm not thinking to myself, boy, what a bold minimalist deconstruction of Shakespeare that seems to be. No, I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, Romeo and Juliet. Hello, Leo DiCaprio. Hello, puffy sleeves and flowers and jewels, and I would like to have champagne at intermission. Yes, please, sign me up. Where's my ball gown? And then I show up and the production looks like this? Please tell me that's not misleading. Because how disappointed would you be if you like put on your ball gown and all your tuxedos and stuff, and then even that one grungy smoker friend brings like a beautiful cigarette extendy thingy for the intermission, and then the curtain goes up and the set has all the charm of a post-war Russian apartment playground. This is by no means a one-off. Here is an ad for Tosca in Amsterdam. Think about Tosca. We're thinking 1800s Italy. We're thinking painters. We're thinking cathedrals, right? Okay? Have that in your brain. Here's what it looked like. All right, here's another one for Carmen. This is what the ad was. Here's what it looked like. Another one for Cinderella. You see the problem here? They know what they're doing. This is sneaky. There's IP recognition here. Audiences go in with a certain expectation of what that's gonna look like, and opera houses are not doing anything to make people not have that expectation. I call malarkey. Misleading malarkey. Now sure, could I go to the opera house's website and click on the opera advertisement page thing and then scroll down to the bottom and then click into the program area and then keep scrolling down to the bottom and then maybe find a video that actually does show what the production looks like? Oh my God, I'm dying. Yes, sure, but that's not what they're choosing to advertise to me when I haven't asked for it. And as a consumer, why would I go do that if nothing is setting me up for the fact that my expectation is wrong? So yeah, we can debate about whether or not it's the company's responsibility to make sure that I'm aware of what I need to research before I go. But let's say that I did. Let's say that I knew that I was supposed to go research this. Do you think that I would still show up to an opera again after having been bait and switched previously? I mean, with audience numbers being the way they are, and we'll talk about that in a second, I kind of think that operas could stand to be a little bit more proactive about their advertising. Because the fix for this one is so easy. Just be clear. Just be clear. Tell me that when you're gonna do La Bohème, and you know that I'm expecting 1800s Paris and snow and beautiful snatched corsets, that you have set it in space. To their credit, the Paris Opera did actually do this in their ads. You can see, beautiful. Thank you for being clear. It was wildly debated. There were lots of opinions, but no one could say that they didn't tell you what to expect, right? Thank you. Here's another one where they actually did it correctly, although this one does actually cut off like half the stage, so it could be a little bit clearer, but that's kind of my point, right? It is remarkably difficult to find advertisements that actually do show what a production is going to look like when it's been reimagined. And if the reason opera houses aren't being clear is because they're scared that audiences aren't going to buy tickets, as I suspect is actually the reason, at what point do you start listening to your audience? Oh, the segue brings me to my next point beautifully. These productions are out of touch. So out of touch, I'm gonna switch to PowerPoint. What does this mean? It means that opera houses are putting on productions that audiences don't want to see. And I hear you say, Kate, there are so many reasons that people aren't going to the opera. I know, I made a whole video about it. I'll link it in the description. You can go shout at me there. But my point is, I think that these stagings might have something to do with it. According to the 2024 budget report of the Paris National Opera, only 36% of their overall revenue was made up of both ticket sales and visits. That means of this 36%, some of those people didn't even stick around to see a show. Like they just came in, saw the opera house, went, oh, que belle, and then they left. That's less than 36% audience support. Okay. Opera Australia, Sydney Opera House, FY24 budget report. 28% of their revenue was made up of ticket sales. 28%. Though I will actually point out that this little wedge over here that says ticketing, there's like no explanation in the budget report itself about what the difference is between box office sales and ticketing. So like let's combine. For the sake of argument, let's just combine these two. 34%, comparable to the Paris National Opera. 34% audience support. Okay, this is fun. Let's do another one. According to their FY24 budget report, the Met in New York City sold this percentage of tickets for each of their productions in the 2023-2024 season. Let's do an experiment here. Let's take the top 3. These are all top 10 operas, strong IPs, big name brand recognition. Let's take those and then see what their ads were for each of these operas and see if they told people that they were ugly, if they were ugly in the first place, and then how that might correspond to the ticket sales. Okay, I'm seeing like a little backlit version of the Magic Flute. That looks cool. I'm seeing a reimagined Carmen in like maybe the 90s or something. It's got cars, kind of like a grunge look. And then I'm seeing... a glorious traditional Turandot. Thank you. Thank you. I did just turn off the light that's behind this green screen. Sorry about that. Okay, now let's actually see what all of these looked like. Hey, they match. Look at that. Now see, I do think that they did Carmen a disservice here because it does actually look kind of baller. I might have gone, but still, at least the ad matches what I'm actually seeing here on the stage. I might be a repeat customer. Okay, now let's look at the bottom 3 here with only a little over half of their seats sold. These 2 are new operas, so immediately I'm kind of lost. I don't know what these are about. The first one here is just it's three women just kind of standing next to each other in not great looking costumes with not great looking lighting, and I'm assuming that it's probably some kind of minimalist, vaguely 20th century type situation. I'm not particularly interested, except that because I'm an opera aficionado, I recognize the faces of Renee Fleming and Joyce DiDonato and Kelly O'Hara, which is like a ridiculous combination, so I do kind of want to see it for that. But if you don't know who these people are you going to see this? Probably not. But at least it's better than this. Y'all, what are we doing here? Why am I looking at your artistic resume headshots sitting on an ad for a brand new opera? I don't know what I'm buying here. This is a new opera. What is this about? Where is it set? What am I buying tickets to? I'm not buying tickets. I don't know what you are. Tell me what you are. And then here we have a semi-popular opera with just a reimagined staging. It's everything we've looked at before. It's poorly lit. It's black and blue. It's very dark. The costumes are kind of pretty, but there's no props. There's no set. I'm not paying to see this. Okay. What did these operas actually look like? Now, I can't speak for you guys, but if I had seen this on the ad for El Niño, I would have bought tickets. How beautiful does this look? This is so cool. I haven't seen anything like this before. What a disservice. What a disservice to a brand new opera. Why were we looking at the obituary pictures of the lead singers? I can't wrap my head around this. Why would you not want to show amazing set design like this? All right, and then the hours and the Verdi, those were exactly what was advertised on the tin, so I'm not buying tickets to those. Thank you for your honesty. I appreciate that, but not interested. So we definitely have a marketing problem, and we definitely have a staging problem. I'm a little confused, I have to say, about this recent quote that I read from Peter Gelb. I will pause for you to read it. I have some suggestions. Now, as for why I think this is happening, I mean, there are probably a lot of reasons that this is happening, honestly, but I think it all boils down to the fact that opera houses are trying to please too many people. From like a pure marketing perspective, they have an answer to the what is your product question, but they don't have a clear idea of who's purchasing that product, or rather who are not purchasing it. Let's go back to the Sydney Opera House's little pie chart here. Very helpful of them. Thank you for providing that. There might be some people who are surprised to learn that the Sydney Opera House is actually still a functioning opera house and not just like an architectural building. It is. It does that. But as you can see, about half of their revenue, a little more than half actually, comes from that purpose, the tour groups, the food and drinks that you can buy there, that kind of stuff, not actually the productions. And since that's not what we're talking about today, we're going to take that out of the equation. So let's focus on these little slices here. I like to think of these as 5 different audiences. I know there are only 4 slices here. Bear with me. I'll get to that in a second. First, we have the box office. That's you, the person watching this video. That's your friends getting all their ball gowns and tuxedos and cigarette extendy thingies, and they go off to the opera house. That's your sister feeling fancy with her new husband on a date night. All these people who are going to the opera, just buying tickets to go see it. And what do we want? Because I am definitely a part of this group. Content. What else? We want content, we want entertainment, we probably want to feel a little bit fancy while we're doing it. And frankly, it has to give us a better reason than staying at home watching Netflix. Then we have philanthropy. This is money that the opera houses get from institutions that want them to be involved in community activities. What do they want? They want representation and community involvement. So in Australia, that would look like things like representing indigenous populations. In New York City, that would be like the El Nino opera, representing Latin American culture. Then we have corporate partnerships. We're all familiar. Brand deals. They want money, however they can get it. That's an easy one. And then we've got other, old, rich people. These are the private donors. These are the people who get the invitations to come to the fancy after opera or pre-opera dinners to meet the directors and rub elbows with fancy people. For the most part, they've seen these operas a lot, so really they care more about networking than they do about the actual content itself. But when they do care about the content, they're the ones who are going to be pushing for reimaginings or interesting new ideas from this genius new director and this new talent that's going to be on stage, because they've seen all the good stuff already. And it's not listed here, but that 5th piece that I talked about is government grants, particularly in Europe. These are really important for opera houses. That's money that is given by the government to preserve culture in some way, given to museums and opera houses and orchestras and just anything that's like pushing culture and making sure that culture gets preserved. However, the government and the opera house in this case interprets that. That's 5 audiences. 5 audiences, all of whom want very different things. And if you're a leader at an opera house, you have to cater your entire program to all of these people. What do you do? Truly, it's a very difficult problem. I don't envy their position at all. How do you do it? Looking at all of this, I can understand why opera productions feel out of touch with us, with the general public. It's because we're not the target audience. I mean, maybe a little bit, but there's a lot more going on than just us. So fixing this one is trickier because first opera houses have to decide if they actually want to be in touch with the general public. And if they do, that's going to require big business changes. That's going to make them have to start thinking like a 21st century sales organization. And just like we have for all of the people who work very hard to build these sets and to make these designs, it's the fact that they're kind of ugly is not a reflection on the expertise that comes behind it. We have the same thing with marketing. It's not like there aren't teams behind opera houses trying to make this something that will appeal to the general public, and we really appreciate your work. Thank you very much. But unfortunately, it's just it's not resonating. I wish it were. I wish I knew what the answer was, but yeah. Right now, this is not it. And for anyone who's looking for a little bit of hope of what could be possible if marketing does align to the general expectation, that exists. It's called classical crossover. Yes, I would assert that the reason that classical crossover is a different genre than opera or orchestras or any other form of classical music entertainment is purely because they have nailed marketing. That's it. That's it. It's the only thing, because all these musicians who are part of classical crossover are good. They're good, y'all. The only thing that makes it different is that the general public knows who they are. And if that's wounding to the ego of the opera house, if this idea that it is exclusive and therefore that's what makes it relevant and interesting, I refer you to my video about classical music dying. So where do we go from here? What do we do with all of these ugly, misleading, out of touch stagings. I think the only thing we can do is talk about it. And part of the reason that I wanted to make this particular video is kind of in the hopes that it reaches an opera house. Because if opera houses are struggling with audience attendance and they're struggling to get people through the door and they're struggling to get even people like me to come and see a show, I kind of need them to ask themselves, what is the point of opera? Like, go back to the basics. Why are we doing this? I can tell you why I still like it. It moves me. I find opera so beautiful. It helps me. I don't even know if it helps me. It connects me to something bigger than myself. Not just people who lived 300 years ago, but also everyone around me today. It's like this illogical emotional expression that you can't get out in any other way. At least for me. I think everyone needs this, right? Everyone needs some kind of connection to humanity. And for those of us who find that in opera, boy, these stagings are really killing us. Because ultimately, I don't think that operas are ugly or misleading or out of touch. I think they're beautiful and just as relevant today as they were when they were written. And I have so much hope for what is possible if opera houses can just remember what it was that made all of us fall in love with this in the first place, and then just start staging with that love again.